Hey guys, what's up? It's Bebee Plants here. In today's video, I'm going to show you guys how I transplant all of my plants and soil into LECA. This is a method that I use and have been using to transplant every single one, and it has helped me increase my chances of my success rate and decreases my chance of root rot, which is the problem that I was having before when I was transplanting my plants. I want to give a big shout out to Pretty in Plants. Pretty much all of her videos have helped me come to this method. I used everything that she has showed in her videos and kind of tailored it to fit my situation. I use this method for all of my plants. I do modify one step depending on the type of plant, but I pretty much do the same steps I'm about to show you guys. Before we get in, if you have landed on this video because you need help with your LECA transplantation and if it's not going well, my biggest advice for you guys is to do three things: increase humidity, increase the temperature, and increase the lighting that you have on the plant. For me, if a plant isn't doing well in LECA, I just automatically place it into a propagation box. If the plant is too big to be shoved into a propagation box, you can always just turn on a humidifier and place it right next to the plant. Take artificial lighting like a lamp and shine it on your plant. Today we're transplanting a Hoya caryi that is in soil into LECA. I'm first going to talk about the supplies that you'll need. I'll go through the steps and show you guys what I did, and then towards the end we will look at the roots on my Hoya caryi, which I transplanted on June 11th. So supplies. The supplies you'll need is dry, clean LECA. Doesn't matter how you guys clean it, just make sure it's clean and there's no dust on it, there's no dead debris or dry debris on it, and make sure that the LECA is dry. The method that I'm about to show you guys relies on us keeping everything dry and then watering when needed. So that's a very important thing to keep in mind. Dry, clean LECA. The second thing you'll need is a container to keep your plant in. You can use a multitude of containers. You can use glass jars. You can use like see-through plastic cups. You can use net pots with a catch pot, or you can use a plastic pot with a catch pot. And then I also like to use the plastic like picnic see-through cups when I first transplant a plant, because it's a lot easier for me to see the roots, and I think that's really important for you to have a visualization of what the roots look like, because if the roots deteriorate, it means your plant will deteriorate, and that is bad. Then another product that I would suggest is a nutrient called Super Thrive that you can get on Amazon. It's a type of nutrient that you can spray on your plant or mix in with the water to help with transplant shock. You don't have to use it. You can use it if you would like. I will leave the link down below if you are interested. The next supply that I suggest, which is the best method that I have found to take the soil off the roots very easily, and that is using a garden hose attachment that uses high pressured water. I got my attachment at Lowe's. You can get it at any home improvement store. For me, it really gets the soil off the roots. You can use your sink. You can soak your roots as well if you'd like. Okay, so those are the supplies, the general supplies that you will need. So now let's get into the steps. Okay friends, so in today's video, we are going to be transplanting a Hoya caryi, just a regular green one. That was Zoe. She just flopped on her side because she's a little cutie. But we are transplanting a Hoya caryi, a regular green one. We are in the future right now, and that's why it's already in LECA. So towards the end of this video, I'll show you what the roots look like and we'll explore that end. But we're gonna pretend like it's in soil right now, and I'm gonna show you guys the steps that I took to transplant this into LECA. So the first step that you're gonna wanna do is clean the soil off. The name of the LECA game is to clean the soil off of the roots without damaging the root. You want very healthy roots to start off with so that it can be successful at shooting out new roots and not have the plant die faster than it grows new roots. Be very gentle when you're cleaning the soil off the roots. I like to use a high pressured hose garden that I got from Lowe's, which I'm showing you guys in this video. It is one that has different nozzle adjustments, and I like to use the sweep option. and I like to start off with a low pressure and then work my pressure up to get the soil off of the roots. And I feel like by using it, I don't have to go in and manually clean off the soil. You can start off by using the high pressure to clean around the pot to get it loosened up, and then go towards the root ball. Towards the middle, I like to try to separate the branches from each other so that then I can clean off all the soil in the middle, because you want to make sure that you get as much soil off as you can. And then once the branches are separated, I like to take each one and then go in and clean the roots one more time to make sure that I get as much soil off as I can. And in this clip, I'm just still washing the soil off of the roots. If there are large chunks, I do try to wait until the end until I pick them out. But I also like to increase the pressure of the water as I go, depending on where I am in the soil. If it's like hard soil, compact soil, just make sure that you test out the pressure on your hand before you spray it on your plants. And as you guys can see, the pool was really full, so I just took the kiddie pool and dumped all the water out onto my rose bushes. And here I am starting over, just making sure I get all of it off, and then just keep going. And if you're doing this in your sink, you're just going to keep wanting to do this as well. If you're soaking it, just keep doing what you're doing until all the soil has come off. And as you can see here, I have gotten the roots kind of loosen up, and I'm like concentrating more towards the middle to separate them. And in this clip, I'm just removing it as gently as I can, removing any large particles, and then I place it in my hand and increase the pressure on the water and make sure that I get kind of close to the roots so that it blasts off any of the remaining soil. In this step, by getting the soil off, you can use different methods. I've seen people use their sink. You can soak them off. You can do whatever method that works for you. Just try to get the soil off of the roots without damaging any of the roots and without you having to manually move them around and clean them a lot, because I feel like that's how I have broken a lot of roots off. But you can use your hands to clean them off. I like to use the garden hose. It's the fastest way. It's the most effective way for me. Step number 2 is I like to take my clean plants with clean roots and let them sit on a countertop and dry. I want dry roots before I put them into LECA. This step for me is pretty vital in increasing my success in plants in LECA, because I have noticed that when I first started off, the roots started rotting very fast. And for me, I have seen that if I just let the roots dry and then place it in there, it decreases the chances. So I like to take my plants and either place it on like a paper towel or like a kitchen towel and just leave them on the counter and let them air dry. Or if it's hot in your area and you have like a patio that's covered, you can place it outside and let it air dry out there. Just make sure that wherever the plant is, that it's under covered area. Don't let any direct sunlight hit it. It's going to depend on how long it takes your plant to dry, but once your roots are completely dry, we're going to move on to step 3. Step 3 is placing your plant into dry LECA. So just place about 1/3 of LECA at the bottom of whatever container you want to use. Place your plant in, and then I like to use a chopstick to move the LECA around so that it fills in any of the air pockets. And you just want to fill a little at a time, swish it around and so forth, and make sure that your plant is stabilized. I like to place the roots a little lower in the pot as opposed to higher in the pot when I first start off with it. So I would say I put like a tiny little layer at the bottom and then place the plant in and then cover it. And then once your plant is stabilized in the dry LECA, we're going to move on to step 4, which is you do not want to water your plant. So at this step, for any Hoyas or any plant that likes to be dry, like succulents, snake plants, cacti, Hoyas, at this step, step number 4, do not water your plant at all. You want to take your plant that's in dry LECA and place it in a very bright area that gets bright indirect light. I like to use artificial lighting. You can place it right next to like a south-facing window. Just make sure it's just very bright indirect light. And you do not want to leave a water reservoir at all. Keep in mind that even low light plants should be placed in a bright indirect spot when they first get transplanted into LECA, because you want to create an environment that is conducive to root formation, and that is increased humidity, increased light, and increased temperature. And then once your plant has developed water roots, you can then place it into like a place that maybe has lower light, and that's completely fine. For this Hoya carrii, I placed it on a shelf that is right next to a south-facing window, and it's unobstructed and it gets pretty good lighting all day. I had, I think, 30% Colorado indoor humidity in my house, so I didn't really go the extra mile and increase the humidity on this. You totally can. You can go the extra mile and increase your chances even more of success rate. You can take a humidifier and turn that on next to your plant, and you can use artificial lighting to shine it on the plant, and that will increase the rate of root formation even more. I was just lazy and I just placed this in its forever spot, which just happened to have like really bright light. I didn't increase the humidity, so this took about a month to fully adjust to LECA life, and that's just me placing it in like that regular shelf that sits right next to a south-facing window. If you want things to move a little faster, I like to put things in a propagation box where I can keep the humidity really high, and then I take an artificial light and I shine it on there. So I have found that that increases the root formation a lot more. That leads me into the next step, which is watering, because a lot of people question, what do I do? How do I water? This is another step that I have found has helped me increase my rate of success. So the fifth step is, this is going to be different for people, so just take this as a guideline and just run with it depending on your type of environment and your type of plant. So within the next 1 to 7 days, look at your plant and observe for signs of dehydration. So for succulents, cacti, and Hoyas, or any plant that likes to be dry all the time, they display dehydration by having like soft and wrinkled leaves. Especially with Hoyas, they like to be really bone dry, and I've noticed that I think around either the second or third day was when this plant showed signs of dehydration by having really soft and wrinkled leaves, and they were just kind of limp like this. Kind of like when they're in soil and they're like, hey, I need watering, like those types of signs. In soil, it displayed in here, and when it showed that, that's when I water the plant. When I say water the plant, I mean just water like a regular plant. I take it to the sink. I do not pH my water. When I first transplant my plants, I do not pH the water, and I do not put nutrients in it. The only thing that I might put in it is Super Thrive to help with the shock. But if I'm lazy, I just use faucet water. If you're paranoid and if you're like really nervous about it, I would maybe add Super Thrive. When the plant displays signs of dehydration, I take it to the sink and I take it out of its pot, and then I rinse it under the water just like I would a plant, and I would make sure that all of the LECA is damp and wet, and make sure that there is no water accumulation at the bottom. And then I place the plant back in, and then I'll place it back into its spot where it gets bright indirect light. And I will repeat this process for about a month. You're basically going to want to treat your plant like a plant in soil. You're going to look for it for signs of dehydration, water it just like a plant, like run water through it, then place it back into its cache pot with no water reservoir. And within a month, it should develop water roots, which are going to show up as white roots. Once it shows white roots, that's when you can start adding a water reservoir and treat it like a plant that is in semi-hydroponics. And that, my friend, is a method that I use for all of my plants. Now, keep in mind that this can be modified depending on what type of plant that you are working on. This method does work for plants that like to be like wet all the time, and you can modify this to fit those type of plants. Like some plants will not wait 1 or 7 days until it displays dehydration. Some plants will display dehydration right away, and that could mean that you could wet the LECA or dampen the LECA the same day that you transplant it, but leave no water reservoir. You're gonna want to repeat step 5 until your plant develops water roots. I can't tell you how many days in between watering it's gonna take. You just have to observe your plants. Like some Hoyas won't look that pretty the whole time, but then once they pop out water roots, they look so pretty. So just be very patient with your plants, and if you ever panic about your plants, make sure that you increase the humidity, increase the light, and increase the temperature. And like I said, I like to use a propagation box. Now we're gonna check the roots on this guy. So I have this in a netted pot, and without even like going into the root ball, you can see that there is root formation right there. There's already a new root that grew out, so this definitely would benefit from having a water reservoir. When you see this, you can add a tiny bit of water reservoir and you're good to go. As you can see, there's like more roots in there. Cool, so that's a good sign that this has fully transferred or transplanted into LECA. At this point, I would add a water reservoir. So I might as well show you guys how I mix it and how I put it in here. Okay guys, so it's later during the day, and I thought I would show you guys what the roots look like one more time. I did kind of dampen the LECA so that you guys can see the roots a lot better. There's some roots, you can see some fuzzies right there. Let's try to get it in the light. There we go. Do you guys see all the roots intertwined in the LECA? There's also some right there. Flip it over, you see some crawling. So that's a really good indication of a pot that needs to have a reservoir added to it. You see that one just sticking out right there. So we're gonna add a water reservoir to this. For all of my plants in LECA, I do let their LECA dry out, like visibly dry out. And before I move on, yes, this is a very giant LECA ball. I thought someone would notice. But yes, I let the LECA completely dry out, and that's when I will add in the water reservoir. So since we have water roots that have developed, it's time to add in a water reservoir with nutrients in it. Because remember, before I was only watering this with sink water, faucet water, no nutrients added, no pH. Now we're gonna add in a water reservoir. I use Dynagrow Foliage Pro liquid plant food. This is specifically made for hydroponics, and it's important to use a nutrient that's specific to hydroponics because it has the correct nutrients that your plants need, since it's lacking the nutrients from soil. Here are the directions. We are going to be using the non-recirculating system, so it's 1 teaspoon per gallon. I personally don't like to pH my water, and I use Foliage Pro, and I haven't seen really much of a difference. So do you, boo-boo, and do whatever you like, do whatever fits with your schedule. I have this like juice pitcher that is 2 quarts, which is half a gallon. Since I have half a gallon, I would go with half a teaspoon. So I have half a teaspoon here. Okay, sorry guys if it's really dark, sorry. It's really late right now, and I totally forgot that I didn't film this. So here we are. So I have my half a teaspoon. Make sure you get a full scoop. It's good enough. Put it in there, and I like to put the nutrients in this pitcher first, because I feel like once you turn on the faucet water and let the faucet water run in here, the turbulence pretty much mixes the solution for me. So now I'm just gonna fill this up to the 2 quart line. And now it's time to fill in our water reservoir. I like to start low and slow when it comes to the water reservoir. For me, in the past, I have placed too much of the water reservoir in the catch pot too soon, and it pretty much rotted out the water root. So you don't wanna do that. When I first start adding the water reservoir, I like to add it so that maybe it touches like halfway, like right there. Just very minimal. Like sometimes I'll even only add enough so that the bottom is soaked, and then that's it. So we're just gonna put in a little at a time, and like I said, a little is better than a lot. can see it. And also keep the shape of your container in mind. Some containers are like very tapered at the bottom, so your pot might not actually even touch the bottom of the pot. So I usually like to start off with a little water like that, and then take this, drop it in, and then I pull it back out to see where the water line hits. And this barely hits the bottom, so I'm gonna add a little more water. And do the same thing. You drop it in there, take it out. I'm gonna add just a tiny bit more. Drop it in there, take it out, and look at the line, and oh look, it's perfect. It's pretty much right there. So that is what I look for. Here, let me show you guys. So I pretty much have this much water in there. It looks like a lot, but it's really not, because like I said, this shape is kind of weird. So the bottom of this pot doesn't sit flush with the bottom of this pot. And so that's why it looks like a lot of water, and it's not at all. I will now just place this back into its forever home, which sits in front of a south-facing window. At this point, I don't know if I mentioned before, but once your plant develops water roots, you can then start placing it in its normal home, and you don't have to provide it with such bright indirect light, especially if it doesn't need it. And now I will allow this water reservoir to completely evaporate, and then I will look for dry LECA. I like my LECA to completely dry out, especially if it's still like in the newer phase of converting. Oh, by the way, the rest of this water I'm using on my other plants. If you only have one plant that you have to feed, measure accordingly to the type of container that you have. So obviously don't mix half a gallon of nutrient water if you only have one plant to work with. But this guy does sit in a south-facing window, so I will place him back there, and I will let the water reservoir completely evaporate. And I like my LECA to kind of dry out to allow more air flowage, and then I'll add in a water reservoir. I have some plants who have had roots that started kind of rotting because I left the roots a little bit too wet. So now I let most of my plants kind of go through like a wet dry phase, so that air flowage goes through there, and so there's no rot that occurs. And that's pretty much it. After that, I just repeat that, put it in a sunny spot, wait until the water reservoir evaporates, then I let the LECA dry out. I mean like visibly dry out, and then I add a water reservoir. The time frame that your plants grow new roots is going to depend on the type of environment that you provide it and the type of plant that you're transplanting. If you are worried about any type of plant, increasing humidity right away. If you want to increase your chances right off the bat, increase the humidity. That's my answer to everything. Increase humidity and increase the light. That's pretty much how I've been transplanting every single one of my plants, and they have been quite successful, and I'm really happy about it. So remember, the answer is always increase humidity, increase the light, and increase the temperature. I hope this works out for you guys. I hope you guys try this out, and remember, just be patient. And yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. As always, I'll definitely see you in my next video. Bye, guys.